If you could stay on mute, if you would. We'll get started here in about a minute. Let everybody get in from the waiting room. Make sure everybody has a chance to join and we'll get started. All right, it's 1 after. Welcome. And just so you know, we're going to go ahead and record this meeting so that we can post it for those that have missed it. This is not an optional meeting for grantees, so we'll have it available in case somebody needs to reference it at a later time. But welcome to our Math Supplemental Curriculum Kickoff meeting. Everybody's been waiting to get going, so we're excited to be here. And Krista, if you could bump us forward on the next slide, we'll get started. Again, excited to be here. We are thrilled and want to extend our heartfelt congratulations to you on being awarded to the Math Supplemental Curriculum Grant. Math Supplemental Curriculum licenses are an in-kind award. This recognition is a testament to your dedication and wanting to get some additional resources to support your students as they continue to grow in math. Next slide, please. We want to start with introductions. Most of the tutoring team's not able to be here today. We do have Donna Weichert. She's helping. You may have seen her as part of some of the Lasso communications. She's going to be here manning the question and answer section. And that's our main mode of communication. As you notice, the chat bubble's missing. We aren't monitoring a chat today. But if you have questions, most of them we hope are answered as part of the deck. But if you do have a question, if you'll post it in the Q&A, that's a way for us to capture any outstanding questions. My name's Colby Self. I'm the Director of Texas Tutoring Supports. Not with us today, but communications you may have with Alicia Garcia and Isabella Maldonado. But with us today, our newest team member, Krista Workman. Krista, I'll let you come off mute and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Krista Workman. I'm a Texas tutoring specialist. I'm excited to begin working with you all. Most of our communication with the MSC grants will be directly from me and or Colby. I'll be presenting towards the end of this presentation, and you all will just have to forgive me. I'm a little bit under the weather, so I'm going to do my best there, but we're super excited.
All right. Well, thank you, Krista and Donna, for being here supporting us today. If you go ahead and progress to the next slide, Krista. So for the agenda today, we've congratulated you, welcome and introductions. We're going to do a high-level overview of the problem and opportunity overview, similar to what we did with the webinar of the Lasso 2.0 overview for MSC. Talk to you a little bit, remind you about the Math Supplemental Curriculum Initiative. Then Chris is going to take over and introduce and talk about the providers, the LEA requirements that you've opted in as a grantee if you accept the grant moving forward, completing the acceptance decline survey, which the emails went out this morning at 8 o'clock. If you didn't get an email, what to do, what the next steps are for that, absolute closing and next steps, and then opportunities for questions for that as well. Just a reminder, as mentioned before, if you have questions, please drop them in the Q&A box. Recordings will be posted. It may not be today, but this week we'll post this in the deck on the Lasso 2.0 website. That's going to be your home base for information. We're not building out a separate site, but you can go to that Lasso 2.0 website for information about all your Lasso grants, including MSC will be there. And the one email address you need is accelerated.instruction@tea.texas.gov. Many of you have found that already and have been able to communicate with us, and we've sent emails from that to you. So if you want to be sure to bookmark that, if you have specific MSC questions, we also will provide the general Lasso email at the end. That's a good email to keep handy if you have questions about any of your other Lasso grants that you need more information on. just in general questions. So the problem and opportunity, why you're here, as we know, before COVID, I was an elementary principal, served for 9 years, elementary, and we were making great progress in math and reading, and then COVID hit. So we were seeing great progress. COVID hit. We had that decline with many of our students, and saw declines in math and reading. Overall, we've seen better recovery in reading, but there's still this decline in math that shows that we still have needs that aren't met, and we'll need to continue to move our students forward in math. So if you go to the next slide, Krista, sorry. I saw Christy in the waiting room. That's why I mentioned her name. There's several components that will help us with math and focusing on rigorous tier 1 instructional materials. There's also options to work with different instructional strategies, blended learning models, which was one of the opportunities you had with LASSO 2.0, the blended learning grant. We also look at high impact tutoring, which is another instructional model that many of you have used and is outlined as part of House Bill 1416 that can be used to leverage our strategies and resources we have in moving forward. Okay, Krista. So there are some cases we made in the webinar you saw when we were presenting math supplemental curriculum. We went in more depth of how the licenses could be used in a blended learning model in the classroom and for high impact tutoring. And these are just some examples, some approved examples of a blended learning model, the rotational lab model and student-driven flex model, where some of the providers that you've seen or providers you may have used before can be integrated into a classroom setting to help leverage and grow your students as needed. All right, Krista, the next one. But we're going to talk mostly and touch more on the high impact tutoring model, because many of you are sorry, I got muted there. But if you are going to use this for tutoring, there are some best practices. There are some best practices here that you want to be sure to follow. We know that there are some nationally normed best practices for tutoring, such as well-trained, consistent tutor, high quality instructional materials, small group or 4-to-1 ratios. It's embedded during the school day. You have that usage metric, and each provider has their dosage and usage that they do promote and that they are putting forward, and it's also data driven. And so keep in mind that each product will have its dosage that needs to be followed in order to get the outcomes you desire. So when you're looking at products later, we'll have that information shared out as well. If you are using the product for accelerated instruction, it's also important to understand the requirements to meet the statute for 1416. I won't go into much detail. You are living this day in, day out, and we've received a few calls about it. But there are some changes this year with 1416 from 4545 that you can leverage these products and meet the 15 or 30-hour requirements. But I did want to make a note in the bottom left-hand corner in the orange box. The MSC products are not approved for the House Bill 1416 list as automated, computerized, or other augmented methods, ACAM, that's listed in statute. We are working on that process, that review process, and that list will not be out until May or June when the rule does come out. So these products are not part of that. We've talked to our providers and let them know that they're not associated with that. Now, some of our providers may eventually be approved as that, but there are not currently any list of providers that are approved for that use. So just don't want to create any confusion with that. These are supplemental providers that can be used for standard tutoring in the 4-to-1 ratio that follow the standard tutoring practices you may have implemented in your district. Again, LASSO provides key components. Just remind you, we have the instructional materials, which we fall under. There is more time and innovative school models that are represented across the LASSO grants. that hopefully, and many of you we saw had applied to and are looking at implementing. Again, Mass Supplemental Curriculum, we're in the launch phase here as we move into the spring and into the summer of 2024. Getting to the initiative as a recap for many of you, we do have a total funding for the term of 25 million. It is in-kind supports only. So that means there are not any additional funds in the way of money coming directly to the district. There are licenses, which includes the training and other supports coming from the providers. We did have a total grantees of around 220 LEAs that were eligible for granting that did receive the grant awards. Now we'll see how many are accepting of that or decline that. And we are ready for launch as soon as we can, starting today with the surveys that go out. But just be advised, there is a key date of October 31st, which you must be up and running if you accept this grant. And that means you must be accessing the licenses by October 31st, 2024. And that's a key reminder that if you have not accessed your licenses by that date, those licenses could be taken back, because we do anticipate a high demand, and there will be a need for additional licenses in other areas. So it's key that by October 31st of 2024, all the licenses you have requested have been accessed. And we'll talk a little bit more about that definition. What does access mean here shortly? All right, Krista. So again, the purpose is to provide high quality supplemental curriculum, pre-K through 12. A big ask we had was we need secondary instructional materials. So we'll have it with our products here for math. We do ask you to agree to a set of requirements, and some of those are some planning components. So we've asked you to plan, including scheduling and other administrator buy-in and administrator acknowledgements for implementation. We are in the launch phase, spring, summer 2024. Implementation year 1 will be next school year, 24-25. Implementation year 2 is 25-26 school year, but because of how we're funded with ESSER funding, the licenses will end in February of 2026. So keep that in mind as you're planning out your calendars and implementation, that the licenses will end at the end of February of 2026. So keep in mind, ideally getting your leadership on board, support, planning, provide students with the product, use with fidelity, implement, and it should impact student outcomes. We did look at efficacy. We did look at research and studies of the products that were selected, of the 6 providers selected, and they did show if it is used with fidelity, it's used consistently, there are positive student outcomes with that. So here we are with the launch. LEAs opt in through LASSO. That's where we are today. We're going to talk to you a little bit about the survey. The survey is the acceptance. Because we are an in-kind grant, Krista will reiterate this, the survey is your acceptance or decline. This is not tracked in e-grants, as many of your other LASSO decision or LASSO grants are tracked. So this survey is your acceptance or decline of the grant and acknowledgement that you are going to move forward or you are not going to move forward with that. We did say previously that once the grants notifications were sent out, if you did not like any of the vendors, or in this case, we're calling them providers, that you could decline the grant, and this is your opportunity to do that. If you're not okay with the providers that we're offering, the 6 providers that Chris is fixing to go over, it's not a fit for you, this is your opportunity on the survey to say, I'm declining the grant and going to move forward without that. No penalty. It's that's your option at this time. Please be advised though, implementation year, we're looking at access. Access means, has your student logged on to that license? That's the access piece. About middle of year one, we're going to start looking at usage fidelity. So usage is, have students been using the product to the dosage amount? And we'll show you a chart that'll outline and give you an idea of what the dosage should be for each of the products. So you have an idea of what the commitment is per week that you'll need your students to target to hit that usage metric. So you know what the lift is in scheduling. So if you're thinking about, okay, during my week of scheduling, how many times or how many minutes per week would I need to schedule for this product or the provider to be scheduled there? Should not be a problem. A lot of them are 30, 60 minutes per week, which should be well within the scope of your schedule. And there'll be additional training from each provider too. They have example schedules. They have possibly other districts that they could provide, or other LEAs that could provide schedules that are examples of how to integrate it. If you're doing it in a blended learning situation, should be part of the regular daily class schedule. Should be easy to hit those metrics as you go through and get those integrated well. And you may already be a product that you've used previously. It may already be set up for you, which will make it an easy target to hit for you moving forward. Again, year two prioritization, as I mentioned, is going to be on the usage targets, and those will be outlined, and you'll be well aware of those with the provider you select or providers you select moving forward. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Krista.
Thank you, Colby. For those of you that joined a little bit late, my name is Krista Workman. I'm the Texas Tutoring Specialist. I'll be your primary point of contact throughout this MSC grant process. I am just a little bit under the weather, so bear with me. I'm going to try to speak clearly and with minimal coughing for you all. All right, so as some of you may or may not be aware, we are contracted with 6 providers for these licenses. They are listed on the screen. So they are Age of Learning, Carnegie, Curriculum Associates, IXL, ST Math, and Zern. We, as Colby mentioned previously, we're an in-kind grant, and so that means that we will be providing licenses. So these are the 6 providers that you all can choose from to use for this MSC grant. As he mentioned, if none of these providers suit your needs, you're able to decline the grant. But at this time, these are the 6 providers that you have the option to use. You will want to reference the SAPL slide deck that is linked on this presentation, and it's linked at the LASA website, because it'll provide a lot more detailed information about each provider. Additionally, we'll have a provider fair where each provider will share some details about themselves that will be really helpful for you to come to if you are deciding on which provider you'd like to use. Again, listed here is the grade coverage that each provider will cover, and their usage threshold. And so this will be the usage that you all will be held to if you choose to use that provider.
And just a reminder, I see in the Q&A, some people didn't get the email. We have the vendor provider on the 22nd, and I can put that information in the chat for the registration. The provider fair is 10 to 11:15 on the 22nd, coming up this week. So if you needed more info, I'll try to drop that in one of the Q&As here, so we have that info.
Additionally, I will send out a follow-up email with the links to that provider fair and the dates and things that we're going to share in this slide deck. And again, the slide deck will be posted on the LASO website. It will take probably about a week to get posted, but the recording and the slide deck will be there for y'all's reference as well. So there will be a limit of 2 providers per campus unless full grade coverage can't be met by 2 providers. If you fall in this category, please let us know. We want to make sure that you have the coverage that you all need, but implementing with more than 2 providers could get a little tricky just to meet some of the grant assurances. So we believe that you can meet everything that you need with the 2 providers, but if you all have an extenuating circumstances, definitely let us know. A few reminders to select To select a provider that has campus-wide licenses, the campus must commit to using the campus-wide license with at least 225 students per campus. If you have less than 375 students enrolled in the grade levels, then we ask that 60% of students enrolled in those grade levels must use licenses. Additionally, LEAs must select a provider or providers through the survey. However, fulfillment of the request is contingent upon license availability and is on a first come, first served basis. We would love to provide licenses for the providers that you all select. That is the goal. However, we do have limited licenses available for each provider. So if there is a circumstance where you've selected licenses from a provider and we no longer have those licenses available, we will contact you and see how we can meet your needs. We anticipate that to not be happen frequently, but just be aware of that. Again, first come, first serve. So the quicker you get that survey into us, the more likely it is that you will be paired with your selected provider. Again, we'll be matching on a rolling basis as their surveys are complete. And we will contact you in the event that your provider is not available. These are the details for the provider fair. It is on the 22nd, so this Thursday at 10 o'clock Central Standard Time. It is optional. If you already know the provider you would like to work with, you do not have to attend. If you would like to learn a little bit more about each provider, they will all be in attendance. I think we've given them each about 10 minutes just to share a quick little blurb for you all. And then additionally, they will provide office hours that you can go to for a more in-depth overview, for additional help, things of that nature, and they will provide those office hours themselves. So feel free to come to that provider fair. Let us know if you have any questions. Again, accessing the SAPL slide deck, the state approved provider list, gives even more details about each provider. And if you would not like any of these providers, just please complete that survey and decline the grant, so that way we can know that you are no longer interested and we can allocate licenses to other districts. These are just some requirements to be involved in the grant. Some things of note here are that these assurances are what you all have agreed to in accepting the grant. The campus level administrator, district IT director, and superintendent are aware you would have provided these individuals information in the application submission. You'll need a designation of an LEA sponsor and a campus level lead. You'll provide that information within the survey. Additionally, campus contact info for licenses and training will be included in the survey. We will ask for schedules for when licenses are going to be utilized. We'll provide details in the coming weeks about how you can submit those. And that goes the same for the data monitoring plan. So we just ask that you all have a data monitoring plan in place and look for email communication from us about how and when that will need to be submitted. We do ask that you attend all required trainings. Each provider might have different trainings, so that way your facilitators are trained up on their products. And we ask that you attend that so that way you can implement with fidelity. And then again, we request that only licenses, or that you request only licenses that will actually be utilized. We really want to make sure that licenses that are provided are utilized. And so if you do not need all of that, the licenses that you have originally requested, if you will let us know that way we can allocate them to others. This is also an important thing just to note and be aware of. Providers, each of the providers are going to be required to collect Texas Student Data System's unique 10-digit student ID when rostering the students. All that really means is please work with your IT department whenever you're rostering students with each provider, and just let them know to please make sure that that data is included. A little timeline for you all. The first two on here happened today. The survey was emailed out to superintendents. If you're on this email or if you're on this presentation and you did not get that email, please check with your superintendent. If they did not receive it, you can email that accelerated instruction inbox and we'll make sure that you all get it. It was only sent out to superintendents because it is a unique link and we didn't want multiple links sent out to multiple people within the districts and confusion to happen. So check with superintendents. If they did not get the survey, please let us know and we'll make sure that you all get that. Again, the provider fair is on the 22nd. We will be hosting office hours on the 29th, where we'll go even more in depth. We're going to do a little bit of an overview of what the survey looks like here in just a little bit. But if you have questions about completing the survey, anything like that, those office hours are going to be a great thing to join, and they are happening next Thursday on the 29th. A big date to note here is March 29th. That is the day that the survey closes. If you do not submit the survey by that date, then we are assuming that that means you are declining the survey. So please, please, please make sure that you complete the survey by the 29th to ensure that you're awarded licenses. Additionally, we will be sending out a notice of grant award by April 30th. I'll go a little bit more in detail on this in a little bit. There's nothing you all need to do there. Just be on the lookout for an email with some documentation, just being notified that you all were awarded this grant. And then again, the data monitoring plan and the schedules will be due by 30 days after your start date, and how you all can submit those. That information will come shortly. Excuse me. All right. Let's look at the survey and what all you can expect with that survey. Again, they went out today. They are due by 5 o'clock on March 29th. Only one survey should be completed per LEA. This is a big one. They're not able to be saved before submission, so please be prepared to complete the survey in one sitting. If you have many campuses that are going to be utilizing licenses, this could take several hours to complete. So please make sure that you gather all the information you need to complete the survey and have that ready and are able to complete that in one sitting. Additional note, you must not exceed the number of awarded licenses indicated in your award letter. You may indicate less, but not more. So on February 8th, award letters went out. That indicated the number of licenses that your LEA was awarded. When completing the survey, you'll input that information. Please do not go over that
The
amount.
200 pages that you sent Marcy were interventions or rules?
The sooner you complete your survey, the better, especially if you need assistance with any technical issues. We've all run into this before. If you wait until March 29th to complete the survey, inevitably you will have technology difficulties and it will just create stress. So the sooner you get that done, if you do have any issues, it just allows us to take care of that and still have that survey completed in before the deadline. The survey is the only way to accept the grant, to accept or decline the grant. We are going to provide you a worksheet to help you gather the information needed on the survey. Just know that that worksheet is a tool for you all, but all of that information does still need to be input into the survey. It cannot be submitted in another capacity. Give me just 1 second.
Just to speak to the importance of matching your maximum awarded licenses, again, mentioning that this is happening outside of e-grants. If you are participating in other LASSO grants, you're interacting with the e-grant system. Because we are in kind, we are doing this through this survey. So it's very important that those numbers match up with what your February 8th letter stated as a maximum awarded licenses and what the survey says is your maximum awarded licenses or less, because we have to match those up as part of the final NOGA award that you'll receive. And she'll talk a little bit about the final notice of grant award that goes out after the acceptance of this through the survey. So that's very important. If you have questions or concerns, please email us. We'll be happy to help you look that up. We are getting notices that some people didn't get the survey link. We can help y'all with that a little bit later as we get through the presentation. We'll be able to follow up with you on that as well.
Thank you, Colby. This slide is super important. If there is one slide from this whole presentation to screenshot or keep the information from, this is the one that I would do. This information will be in a worksheet, again, that will be emailed out. But this lets you know what you need to collect before completing the survey. So you will need to know the number of licenses awarded. Again, it's in the award letter that went out on February 8th. And then you will need to know campus-specific information, total number of campus enrollments, the providers for the campus, the number of licenses needed per grade level, your anticipated start date. And again, you would probably want to make sure that your anticipated start date is before that October 31st date, just to be in compliance. The campus license utilization plan, do you plan to use it for tutoring, blended learning, things like that? And the campus contact information. Just want to reiterate again that you really want to complete the survey in one sitting. So gathering all this information for each campus before starting the survey is going to be a huge help to you. A quick survey walkthrough again during the office hours. We'll go more in depth through this, but when you get the survey and access it, this is what you will see. This is the first page. It's a welcome letter. It does have the sample slide deck link to get information about, or more information about each provider. You'll select your LEA and your contact information. This is the page that you will either accept or decline the grant. I did want to point it out because the wording is not as simple as I am accepting or declining the grant. It says, does your LEA commit and is willing to accept these licenses and the requirements as outlined? If you say no, that is a decline. It'll take you to a page where you essentially sign and say, yes, I'm signing, I'm submitting, and then you submit the survey. But again, if you select no, that's a decline. If you select yes, it will take you on to fill out the information for each campus. And then each campus page will look somewhat like this. You will select the campus name, total number of licenses for that campus, the provider for that campus, and then how many licenses are needed at each grade level. Something to note that in that last deck where you did the drop down of campus name, if you go on to the next page and fill it out, and then you use the back button at the bottom of the survey, that drop down will unpopulate. So you'll have to reselect that drop down if you utilize the back feature. That's just something to know because you are able to go back and check your work within the survey, but you will have to reselect that. So again, when you collect your information, it might be a good idea to number your campuses. So that way, let me go back. If you go back and you come to this page, you know what campus you had numbered as number 1, so you can reselect it. Again, this is really helpful if you are an LEA with several campuses. You're going to want to number them so that way you can keep track of the information that you're inputting. This is going to be the last page of the survey. Please be sure to complete all prior pages before clicking the submit button. And then after your submission, you will begin the provider matching. We will begin the provider matching process. Again, this is the same page that if you decline on that one where if you had said, no, I don't agree, it would take you to this page and you would still sign and submit. And essentially that's letting us know that you declined. And then the NOGA, the Notice of Grant Award. If you decline the survey, you will not get a Notice of Grant Award. If you accept, the MSC grant, then you will receive an email containing the notice of grant award document no later than April 30th. It will detail your grant allocations. You're not required to sign or send this back. It is just for your information and should be retained for your records. It will look something like this. Again, you'll get an email before April 30th, and then just keep it for your records. Nothing that you all need to do, no action items there. We will have office hours on February 29th. This would be a great time to come ask questions about the survey. We can go more in depth, spend some more time on each tab. You can ask additional questions, things like that. We want to make that time available to you all. If you do not need it, again, it's optional. You do not have to come, but we will be there and available for any questions that you might have. So your next steps are the optional provider fair on February 22nd. Again, the optional office hours on February 29th. Making sure that that survey is complete before March 29th. And then submitting the schedule and data monitoring plan. And again, more details to that on how to do that will come later. Some things that we did talk about a little bit in the deck, but very important reminders and things that may be missed. That Texas Student Data System, TSDS, unique student ID will need to be collected when you're rostering your students to each provider. Again, surveys will need to be completed in one sitting. Please be sure to gather all that information before beginning the survey. And it may take several hours to complete if you are an LEA with several campuses that are going to be utilizing licenses. We are matching first come, first serve. So the sooner you get in that survey, the better. Please do not request more than your allotted licenses. Be sure to reference your award letter. We want to make sure that we have licenses available for everyone. So we will not be providing more than the allocated licenses at this time. We may look at that in the future if we have leftover licenses. And then again, grant assurances for year one consideration when selecting your start date. Licenses not accessed by October 31st could result in a reduction in non-access license or possible removal from the provider selected if zero access has occurred. Please be sure to allow time for rostering training before this date so students can log in, access, issues licenses before this time. We just really want to be sure that allocated licenses are utilized. We want to make sure that students are having the chance to access these and have success. So we're really going to be paying close attention to that usage data and making sure that the funds are, being allocated appropriately and that students are ultimately benefiting from this grant. Again, I will be your primary point of contact. The best way to communicate is by emailing that accelerated instruction email. I have access to that and our entire team has access, so you should get a relatively quick response. The LASSO 2.0 webpage will be where everything is linked. They're even working on like a one-stop shop for a calendar and newsletters and everything. So that really will be your source of truth web page. And then if you have general grant questions outside of MSC Math Supplemental Curriculum questions, that LASSO email is a really good one. They'll be able to answer your question or route you to the correct person. All right, we got through that pretty quick, so we do have time for questions. We may not be able to answer your questions. We can get back to you, but if anybody, Colby, before we go on to questions, do you have anything additional to share?
No, if you want to stop sharing your screen, we could probably make it a little bit easier to navigate. I've been trying to answer questions as they pop up. I think some were answered later in the deck. Again, we'll post the deck in this recording There's some specific provider questions that I don't know the answer to. Do the iReady subscriptions include personal learning piece or just the assessment lesson piece? If you go to the sample deck, there are contact information for the particular provider. Feel free to reach out to them. There will be some more detailed information at the vendor fair, or we can reach out to their particular provider, but I'm not as intimately detailed with iReady to answer that specifically for you. But Beth, I don't want you to wait on me. If you want to go ahead and reach out and ask that question, sounds like you're familiar with iReady and know specifically what you're looking for on that. Feel free to reach out and we could research that on our end as well. But it may be a day or two before we get back to you on that.
Gotcha. I just had a meeting with the iReady people and they were unsure too. So I think it's just a matter of y'all getting connected on that. So I
Sure.
think they're
Okay.
reaching out, y'all reach out, we'll figure it out.
It may just be talking to the right person that I
Yeah.
read is the deal.
Right.
But with I don't have the contract in front of me. I could probably look that up for you and get back to you pretty quick. Will there be a sample survey of the questions? I know, Krista, we were working on getting a PDF. Are we going to be able to provide a PDF of the survey?
I am not 100% sure yet. We are still working to see if we can get the PDF. But we will have, it's essentially an Excel spreadsheet, that's a worksheet that details each question of the survey, again, to help you gather that information ahead of time.
So Jennifer, we'll have some tools that'll probably be attached in the follow-up email we send out to this group. So if you registered for this, we'll send out some communications for that as well for that. Jesse said, slide 23 says there'll be a limit of 2 providers per campus. We are not limiting to 2 providers district-wide, but you should be able to meet your needs with 2 providers per campus. So we know like Age of Learning is a pre-K through 2 product. That might not meet the needs for your entire campus, so you may need a second provider, but you should be able to meet the needs of most campuses with 2 providers. I just would caution you, if you do take more providers across the district, that's more schedules that need to be developed. That's more data monitoring plans that'll need to be developed and implemented as well. So think through that. If you have, we have 6 different providers. If you have 6 different providers across the district, it does become a challenge. We're monitoring and communications and training. So keep that in mind. Not that there's a world where that couldn't happen, but it's just becomes a challenge with trainings and other things and getting together and problem solving if there's a logistics issue with implementation that you're trying to look at with scheduling. So no, it doesn't limit you across the district, but we'll look at it and say, okay, are we really looking at 6 different providers across the entire district? Maybe a realistic consideration for some of our larger districts, though. But keep those considerations in mind. We've seen it be a challenge for implementation with in some areas there.
Thank you.
Can you change the number of licenses per grade if your enrollment changes? So Marcy, the reason we're asking the numbers for the grade levels is just for our information. You're going to get X number of licenses that you requested. How you end up allocating those when it's said and done is up to you. We're looking at, are you requesting a product that falls within the grade range you're intending to use it? So did you request Age of Learning, which is pre-K through 2, but you're looking at allocating it for 5th graders? That would be a flag for us to reach out to you and just clarify what is your intended use for those licenses to make sure there's a sense checking there. You're not necessarily allocated to say we're using 5 in that grade level for the duration of those licenses. We're just making sure the grade ranges match up and that it makes sense what you're asking for on that campus. But you're not necessarily going to be stuck with 10 licenses in 5th grade for the duration of the grant, if that makes sense.
Great, thank you.
Sure. On the previous slide, the information provided showed Zern usage 16 minutes per week, but on the sample it states 2 lessons. So if you do 2 30-minute lessons, that is 60 minutes per week. On the composite slide, we distilled it down to just minutes. We were trying to give you a broad overview of how many minutes per week if you were doing a schedule. That's why it says at the top, please consult the sample slide for more details. That's where you're getting in. Okay, the number of lessons is two 30-minute lessons per week. Ultimately, you're going to be bound to what the vendor provides with specificity. 2 to 3 lessons per week is what Zern is a current D6 participant. Ideally they'll say 2 to 3 lessons per week to hit that target. So 2 30-minute lessons per week is the ideal target for Zern. We just, again, distilled it down for simplicity so you could look at what's the time commitment for this provider to see if it's something you could work into your schedule. The same with the other providers on that chart. So you kind of have a ballpark of what the time commitment is that you would expect your students to attend to, if you will. So please do your research. Thank you for asking, anonymous participant. Thanks for asking. Double check. After submitting counting campus growth, grade level, how do you suggest we account for possible growth? Excuse me. We're going to award on what you put on the grant application. This is this round. We need to get those out. That's how we prioritize. That's how we awarded the initial round of grantees. After the end of March, when that closes, we see who's accepted, who's declined. Should there be extra licenses available, you can let us know, hey, I only requested X number of licenses, but we're anticipating growth. We would like to get additional licenses if they're available. We can note that. So should we have licenses available, we possibly could add those. Again, possibly could give you additional licenses. But right now we need to honor what we awarded based on prioritization, based on what was requested in the initial application as we get through this award and acceptance or decline cycle. And then if there are additional licenses available, we definitely would entertain the possibility of increasing those awards, because there will be some that say, you know, I requested 500, but in looking at the grant requirements and what we need, we only need 250. That potentially could open up licenses depending on what provider they choose. So definitely could be some possibilities that there are licenses available that are freed up that we could move. And now that you know, oh, this is a provider, had I known it was XYZ provider, we could have requested more. We've used them before. We would like to scale this up. So please let us know. We can definitely keep a wish list, if you will. Nothing's guaranteed, but there are possibilities. If we have available licenses, we could increase those again at a later time. Based on growth too. You may have a lot of students move in. You need more licenses. It doesn't hurt to ask. The answer is no unless you ask, right? So we definitely can consider that as needed. If we're currently using these products through other funding or programs, should our start date be beginning of the year 24, 25 or sooner? So that's a good question. Many of you may already have existing contracts. Obviously, if you're Decision 6 through T-Class, Zern is already, and you're using Zern, you're already under a Zern license until August. So it may not make sense to say, I want to start Zern now. You're already rostered and using Zern under existing TEA contracts. It would make sense to say, I need to use it starting next school year. If you have questions about that, you can reach out to us on an individual basis and we could look at it and say, hey, what's going on? Obviously, if you're paying for it and you can get it for free, you can reach out to the provider. Let's say ST Math. ST Math ended their contract, I think, in December. You may have paid and wanted to continue to use ST Math as a larger scale. You may reach out to ST Math and say, hey, if I select you, you know, how are y'all handling that situation? Look at your options. You could talk to the providers. They're available. They seem to all have some type of plan of action. If that was the case, how they were managing that piece of if an LEA is already paid for it, how are they managing it now if it falls under the grant? If that's how you want to approach that. I can't really tell you because it's dealing with local contracts and what y'all have with a particular vendor. But all I can say is just maybe ask how they're going to manage that moving forward, on that piece. Christy, I don't know if that answered your question or not. Dina, same
Yes,
for
it did.
you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Christy. What'd you say?
I just said yes, it did answer my question. Thank
Okay.
you.
Deanna, same for you with IXL. I don't control the contracts y'all have with providers or existing contracts y'all have. You'd have to reach out to them and discuss that with them.
Okay, thank you.
Melinda, ST Math says full campus implementation. We have 15 campuses and there are not enough licenses to cover our districts. Is it possible just to do a few grade levels? Not sure if you know. Well, Melinda, I would go ahead and complete what you wanted to do with ST Math and indicate them as your provider, and we could talk about that internally of what that looks like for you and just see about availability and go from there. But just indicate the number of licenses you indicated and what you're wanting to do with that. And email us and we may have to reach out and talk about that. I don't quite know exactly what your numbers are offhand. We would have to look at that and see what you're requesting. Okay. Without knowing what we're looking at in front of me, I really can't guide you on that, but definitely can look at it and talk through that with you on that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Let's see. Nick, I think you had a question. And I don't know, Donna, do you know we're getting reports that some superintendents may not have received the survey email. Do you know the topic line of the email? I didn't get copied on it. I know it was automated through Qualtrics. Were you able to answer that for Nick?
Yes, I did.
She replied. Okay, good. I saw that, Nick, and it disappeared.
And then if I may, so
Go ahead.
I am putting into the requests, the link for requesting a new unique link, but you could also email accelerated instruction or Lasso, because I will be able to provide it.
All right. Yeah, Miss Florencio Zapeta, if one of our campus has 200 students enrolled to meet the 60% criteria, yeah. So we did want to not close out and just think about this, just because they don't offer a campus-wide license doesn't mean you couldn't license an entire campus with individual licenses. That's just how we have it set up. We're trying to maximize our licenses to extend beyond that. So if you wanted to license the entire campus, 200 students, and you ask for that allocation, you could do the entire campus. So, but we are looking at maximizing. If we have campus licenses, it doesn't make sense necessarily to issue a campus license for 5 students out of 200. There would need to be a good size group of students to justify a campus license issuance for a smaller campus. So yes, there would need to be a good percentage of those students that would be using the product to do that. You can request it. We'll talk about it internally, but it is programmatic approval. We can definitely reach out if there's a question. Don't let that be the deciding factor. We can always talk about it and come to a conclusion and look at availability and some other things to make sure that you're getting the best product for your students. Products you're going to use with fidelity with your students.
And just to clarify, not all of the providers are need to use a full campus-wide license. Some do have individual licenses. So just wanted to make sure that there wasn't confusion there that you had to use campus-wide for selecting all providers.
Do we have a count of licenses per vendor that are being awarded for the entire state? So it's somewhat variable depending on what the final contracted amount is and the final cost. We ended up having an average cost of about, I think, $10.40 per license is what you'll see on your NOGA. That's about the ballpark cost per license, but there are slight variances because we do have Zern and ST Math are providing a campus-wide pricing point, and the others are providing, and Age of Learning does have both an individual and a campus-wide pricing. So there are some variability in pricing points, so it does skew the total number of licensing for the six providers. So there's not an exact amount. We did approximate over 800,000 licenses statewide available. If you look at just a general number we looked at when awarding was around 800,000, probably more than that, but a good chunk of licenses are available statewide for that when we did the award. Yeah, Nick asked, can we plan on using supplemental licenses during summer school? That's a great use. I know it may not be in the cards to get up and going, but summer use is a great way to kick off getting training done now, getting people positioned, and kickoff use in the summer is a great opportunity to get up and going. Especially if you haven't used any of these providers before, there may need to be time to get implemented and things up and going. Then you transition in the fall, ready to run, ready to go, and have access completed well before that October 31st deadline. That's a great strategy, Nick. I appreciate that point there.
And just to add a little bit onto what Colby said, so you all could start, as early as within the next few months. Again, as soon as those surveys are completed, we are going to start matching you with providers. And then their time frame on rostering and getting trained could be relatively quick. And so summer school is a great time. Beginning of next school year is a great time to start. Even potentially this school year is an option to start as well.
So we'll generate an attendance report for those that registered and attended today. There's not an exit ticket, and we'll follow up with people that weren't represented to point them toward the recording. This is a required event, so we need to ensure everybody gets the information contained today. We have 2 minutes left, so we'll be wrapping up here shortly. Does anybody have any other questions? Feel free to email us. Feel free to jump in your survey. If you know your provider, you're wanting to go ahead and get signed up. If not, please review the SAPL document. The state approved provider list is on our LASSO website, ready and updated. And Rosa, you wanted to ask a question?
Yes, Mr. Superintendent, I wanted for us to ask. I know you mentioned 30 to 60 minutes. Is that how many days per week the students need to be using the program?
Well, each provider is going to have a different dosage amount. So you need to hone in on what provider you're going to want to use, but those are usually weekly dosage. Like for Zern, the example brought up earlier, I'm just saying Zern is 60 minutes per week. So that'd be 2 30-minute sessions, 2 30-minute lessons, or 1 60-minute lesson per week. Most success is doing it on a daily basis in some capacity.